Part 8. Tomb Raider, Marry Shirley Young at the beginning. Author, October is fierce and cute. Chapter 71. After the decision was made, everyone was led by Li Chunlei and walked towards the Yellow River. The terrain of high low slopes is full of ravines, with no village in front and no shop in back, making it very desolate. Soon, they reached the shore. Everyone looked around and expressed embarrassment. The water potential of the Yellow River is really too vast. The river surface is wide, and the water is more like a yellow dragon, rolling and turbulent, with turbid waves rolling into the sky. Moreover, there are steep loess cliffs all around, and there is no ferry at all. Fatty Wang said there is no village or shop here. If there is no boat, we will have to survive on the shore for one night today. Shirley Yang and Ding Sishan looked at each other and frowned in unison. They are all girls. If they really live on the shore, there will be a lot of inconveniences. Hubei was in a good mood. It's such a rich and precious place, the scenery is really nice. Not to mention the natural treasures, how long will it take to wait for the boat in this wretched place? Fat Wang still had a grimace on his face. Sumu smiled and said, "Fat man, if you are in a hurry, just go to the high ground over there with Lao Hu and sing, and you will definitely be able to row the boat over." The fat man rolled his eyes at Sumu. "Brother Su, just talk nonsense. There probably won't be any boats in this kind of place where birds don't poop." "Yeah. Fatty thinks he's joking. Why don't you believe it?" "Fatty, just do as I say, and you will definitely be able to call the ship over," Sumu said with a smile. In the original work, Hubei and Fatty Wang yelled Chin opera several times in front of them, and then the boat appeared. After all, the boat didn't come for no reason. He thought it was not far away from them. That's right. Seeing Sumu say it again, and thinking of Sumu's magical hexagram before, the fat man stood up unexpectedly. "Okay, since I have nothing to do, I will just listen to you, Brother Su. Lao Hu, shall we perform a military song?" Two people singing the military song of Hammer. Hubei was too lazy to pay attention to him, so he got up and ran to the high ground not far away and started shouting Chin opera. The fat man also smiled happily when he saw it. He took out a bottle of wine from his bag and drank and shouted. For a while, the two of them were really fascinated by the song. Shirley Yang and Ding Sishan were watching from the sidelines. However, just 10 minutes passed, and there was a shadow of a boat on the Yellow River. Fatty and Hubei both started to feel a little agitated. "I doubt it was just a trick to trick them." "I said, Brother Su, didn't you just say that we could call the boat out with just a roar? How come it's been so long and we haven't even seen a shadow of the boat?" To be honest, it wasn't just Fatty and Lao Hu, but Sumu too. "I was wondering, why hasn't this boat appeared yet?" At this moment, I heard the faint sound of a motor in the distance. Sumu turned around. I saw a fishing boat, riding the huge yellow waves, galloping from a distance. Everyone's eyes were immediately clear. Holy shit! There really is a boat. Brother Su, you are really amazing. Fatty Wang even gnashed his teeth and said, "Brother Su, from now on you can just call Sushen. You're so fucking awesome." Sumu smiled slightly, calmly. However, he noticed that Li Chunlei was looking at him sideways, as if something was wrong. After the fishing boat got closer, Fatty Wang and Hubei started shouting remotely with the boatman on the other side. At this time, Li Chunlei secretly asked Sumu to go far away. "Well, little brother, can you give me a prediction?" Sumu glanced at him lightly. "What kind of hexagram is it? Please help me do some calculations to see if I can make money this time, marry my mother-in-law, and have a baby." Li Chunlei begged respectfully. To be honest, Sumu really shocked him after what he did. Everything he said came true. Much better than those who usually pretend to be gods in the village. Now in Li Chunlei's eyes, Sumu it was like a living god in the world. He was so admired. After hearing this, Sumu chuckled. My fortune telling is not in vain. You also know that nothing in this world is in vain. And Li Chunlei was also very wise. He took out one of his handkerchiefs, which contained a lot of money. 5 yuan, 10 yuan, and many more. This was all the money he paid for selling the embroidered shoes before. Li Chunlei didn't either stingy, he gritted his teeth and took out half of the money and handed it to Sumu. There was no sign of stinginess at all that he would rather walk than take a taxi in the morning. Living God, look at me, I don't have much money, but that's all I can give. I beg you, God, please help me. Looking at Li Chunlei's humble posture, Sumu chuckled. Snored. He looked at Li Chunlei in front of him coldly. The thing you took is not yours at all. That horse was bold and was not struck to death by lightning, and his men were all alive and well. When the villagers fight drought, you have to leave the coffin to be burned. As a result, it rained heavily from the sky, and coupled with my inherent greed, I prepared to take the items from the coffin. But you met Ma Dada and his gang. Not only did they loot the coffin, but they also kidnapped you and treated you as their accomplice. They forced you to take your embroidered shoes to Panjiawan to find an expert and trick you into coming to Gulan County for him to plunder. You specialize in trapping and killing outsiders, and you work together in collusion. Li Chunlei, am I right or wrong? Sumu's words were like a quarrel. Hearing this, Li Chunlei trembled all over and was shocked. He made a thump and knelt down directly, _ Tomb Raider, Mary Shirley Young at the beginning. Author, October is fierce and cute. Chapter 72. Sumu's words were like a quarrel. Hearing this, Li Chunlei trembled all over and was shocked. With a thump, he knelt down desperately to beg for mercy. Living God. You are really good at predicting things. I was wrong. I was really wrong. I was forced to do so. I will never dare to have such a plan in the future. Sumu sneered and said, I can forgive you, and I will also help you calculate a fortune, but... Li Chunlei was immediately overjoyed when he heard that the living God in front of him wanted to help him. But he is also a very fine person. He knew that Sumu meant that there must be something he wanted to do. So he quickly asked, may I ask what instructions the living God has? I will definitely do it. Sumu waved his hand, pretending to be a great immortal, and said, no hurry, I will give you a fortune first. Li Chunlei was overjoyed, swallowed his saliva, and looked at him in surprise. Rat, ox, yin, tiger, and rabbit. Sumu pretended to recite the 12 zodiac signs, and then pinched his fingertips. You are a hard luck person in the early part of your life. You have endured all kinds of hardships and suffered many disasters, but when you are 40 years old, you will marry a mother-in-law. Then 5 months later, you had a very cute son. Your son was also very smart. He got into a good university, found a good job, and then created a website called Penguin Website. Your son has made a lot of money by setting up this website, but he earns money from evil intentions. He always deceives many children, and he always plagiarizes others. Li Chunlei never listened to everything he said. It is enough to hear that you are marrying a wife, that your son is making a lot of money, and that someone is honoring you. He now felt a sense of refreshment. Even, full of hope for the future. Li Chunlei kept kowtowing to Sumu to thank him. Thank you, living immortal, thank you, living immortal. Sumu said, the hexagram has been finished. Now I have something I need you to do. When the two came back, the boat also arrived. Everyone hurriedly got on the boat. Shirley Yang sat next to Sumu. Husband, what were you and Li Chun talking about just now? I think he knelt down like you. Sumu smiled mysteriously and said, this is a secret. Everyone saw what happened between Li Chunlei and Sumu before, but no one bothered them. They all knew that Sumu might be planning something. What secret is it? Tell me. Shirley Yang pouted and said close to Sumu. Sumu smelled the fragrance of Shirley Yang and said, "Stop making trouble, there are so many people watching." The two people stood on the bow of the boat and were flirting, which aroused everyone's envy. At this moment, suddenly, there was lightning and thunder in the sky, and it suddenly turned black. Everyone looked at the sky, and the sky became dark very quickly, and it started to rain. It was pouring rain. A gust of wind blew over, and the river was choppy. The boat was bumpy and swaying from side to side. The boatman's face changed at that time. The river god is angry. I want to take possession of this ship. When they heard this, everyone's expressions changed. They couldn't help but think of Sumu's previous hexagram: the land route is impassable, and the waterway encounters strange things. The previous sentence has come true. Could it be that the waterway encounters strange things? Such a situation, thinking about it, everyone felt bad. Sumu had already come to the bow of the boat and glanced at Joe. He knew that there would be such a process when walking by water. Boom! There was a thunder explosion, and a bolt of lightning pierced the sky. Sumu vaguely seemed to sense something, and he stared at the river. The next second, something as big as a small mountain appeared on the surface of the river. That thing, like an iceberg, most of it was hidden in the river, and only a small half was exposed. But even that small half looked much bigger than the bus everyone took before. Everyone was shocked. Take a breath. Sumu was also a little shocked. What he saw in the original novel and what he saw in reality were really two different concepts. This is, it's iron-headed dragon, dragon king. Li Chunlei was so frightened that he trembled even as he spoke. Hu Ba and the others were already dumbfounded. Damn it, brother Su Shen counts. Your calculation is too accurate. Well now, we really encountered a water monster. After the words fell, only a heavy sound was heard. Bang! This huge underwater creature slammed into the ship. The boatman was frightened to death and did not dare to move. What are you doing standing still? Sumu shouted, if this thing hits you 2 more times, the ship will sink. Hurry, copy it. Who are you copying? Fatty Wang asked. Sumu shouted, why do you care so much? Just pick up the one you have and chop it directly. Bang! Another collision. The fishing boat was hit and swayed left and right. Everyone was swaying around and completely unable to stand. The captain was now frightened and overwhelmed, and Li Chunlei was also frightened. The two of them had their legs straight. They trembled and hid in the cabin, not daring to come out. Only the people of Sumu, who had experienced strong winds and waves, remained calm in the face of danger. Sishan, you have a long whip, see if you can go in and get some tools. Hu Bai shouted while holding onto the railing. Sumu was right. It would be better to wait here and be destroyed together with the ship. Get into the water and fight it? Good. Ding Sishan started to act without much hesitation. Unexpectedly, at this moment, the iron-headed Dragon King became fierce again. Boom! Another dull crashing sound came. Ding Sishan was unsteady and almost fell into the water. Fortunately, Hu Bai and the fat man next to her caught her in time. The waves in the Yellow River became even bigger. Everyone could only hold onto the pole of the boat to avoid falling. At this moment, they could not protect themselves, let alone enter the cabin to get weapons to take out the iron-headed Dragon King. Among the people present, only Sumu was stable on the boat. Steady. His strong strength and physique allowed him to be tightly connected to the fishing boat like a suction cup. He didn't feel any discomfort at all. While everyone was busy grasping the handle, Sumu was particularly leisurely to watch. The iron-headed Dragon King in the water. Although most of the iron-headed Dragon King's body is in the water, Sumu with his night eyes can clearly see this guy's entire face. The dark fish body is as big as a house, and the water the big fish eyes were staring at the fishing boat where everyone was sitting, full of greedy desire. It was so fierce and fierce. The more Sumu looked at it, the more excited he became. For such a big and powerful iron-headed Dragon King, the attribute points he dropped would not be bad. Where are you going? Just as Sumu was thinking about how to maximize the interests of the iron-headed Dragon King in front of him, the fat man suddenly shouted. Brother Su, what should we do now? Sumu wiped the rain off his face and replied loudly, when the ship is stabilized later, you can get the weapons first. Shirley Yang suddenly felt that something was wrong with her husband's words. What about you? Before she finished speaking, Hu Bei suddenly interrupted her loudly. Hurry up! This guy is going to hit again. Don't fall into the water. Boom! Another violent collision. This time it was even more fierce. The fishing boat rolled over 30 degrees. Just when everyone was busy holding onto the railing, Sumu let go and fell into the water. Did he fall into the water on purpose? He wanted to see whether he with the blood of the ancestral dragon was more powerful, or the legendary iron-headed Dragon King, _Fei. Lu reminds you, 3 things about reading, collection, recommendation. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Tomb Raider, Mary Shirley Young at the beginning. Author, October is fierce and cute. Chapter 73. Sumu was like a drop of water, falling into the broad yellow river without causing any waves. Then the iron-headed Dragon King also sank into the water. For a while, the fishing boat became more stable. Although it was still swaying, the amplitude was much smaller. Damn it, this bird and fish have finally settled down. The fat man spit hard into the river. At this time, he was wet all over and looked embarrassed. The others were not much better either. Come on, let's go into the cabin quickly to get weapons, lest this guy starts making trouble again later. By the way, Brother Su, what weapons do you need? Hu Bei also climbed up from the board of the boat. He subconsciously turned around and wanted to ask Sumu. As a result, they found that there were only Shirley Yang and Ding Sishan on the other side of the fishing boat, lying dizzy next to the pole of the boat. Damn it! Where is Brother Su? Lao Hu, you are blind. You are not opposite us. The fat man also subconsciously turned around and pointed. Holy shit, where is my brother Su? Hu Bei and the fat man were frightened at that time. The two people quickly ran to the edge of the boat on the other side and pulled Shirley Yang and Ding Sishan up. Si Tian, Staff Yang. Did you two just see where Brother Su went? He is not. Shirley Yang and Ding Sishan, who were feeling dizzy, also looked behind them subconsciously. No, what about people? The two of them woke up instantly from the shock. I just saw him holding me back from falling. Why did they disappear in the blink of an eye? Shirley Yang looked at the empty eyes, her tone was excited, and her voice was trembling. Ding Sishan on the side also began to choke. Could it have fallen into the river? I'll go down and have a look. Fatty Wang almost didn't think about it. He had already flipped one leg over the side of the boat and was about to jump off directly to rescue Sumu. I have to say that Fatty Wang is still very loyal. This is what brothers are like. They often hurt each other and bickered. When the real danger came, they could not sit still and wait for death. However, Shirley Yang and Hu Bei stopped him firmly. You are crazy, go down alone. I have a gun on me. The broken Dragon King who beat his grandmother to death, the fat man struggled to get over. Even if you have guns and ammunition on you, they will definitely misfire. Shirley Yang said loudly. That mother-in-law's labor can't just watch my brother Su being eaten by that guy. When the fat man couldn't get away, he yelled. "He is my husband. I'm more worried than you are. But if you continue like this, you will not be able to do anything except risk your death and cause trouble." Shirley Yang's eyes were red and she almost hissed out these words. Everyone present was worried about Sumyu's safety. But the one who was most worried was Shirley Yang, who was getting along with 11. But at this moment Shirley Yang, but she was strong and did not shed a tear. Because she knew it was useless. I have to say that Shirley Yang is not only beautiful, but also has a strong heart. She is very calm when encountering danger. Now they have guns and ammunition around them, it's definitely unusable. You know, if they go down, those guns will definitely get wet and lose their effect. The only weapons that can be used as weapons are cold weapons. Those harpoons that can attack are still in the cabin. Shirley Yang took a deep breath and calmed down quickly. Now let's hurry up and get the harpoon in the cabin, and then, go down and save my husband. The fat man was not stupid either. He nodded immediately. Then I'll go and get it. Before he could finish his words, suddenly the waves on the river rolled violently again. The fishing boat swayed so much that it was not stable for a person to stand on it. The fat man fell down directly. In this situation, it was impossible to enter the cabin without the help of external tools or something. Shirley Yang looked at the water of the yellow river that was still rolling and motionless, and she became more and more anxious. Looking at the cabin a few meters away, Shirley Yang felt reassured and seemed to have made a decision. While clinging to the railing, she shouted to Ding Sishan next to her. "Sishan, give me the whip, I'm going to the cabin to get the harpoon." Ding. Sishan shook her head desperately. "No, you don't know how to use this whip, so I'll do it." As she said that, she was about to throw the whip over. At this time, Hu Bei grabbed her and shouted. "Wait a minute. It seems like Li Chunlei is in the cabin. Li Chunlei, you damnedest, come over here with the harpoon." Fat Wang shouted loudly at the top of his lungs. However, Li Chunlei, who was hiding inside and closing the cabin door, kept shaking his head. "Don't want. Too dangerous. I won't come out. I won't come out." Hu Bei hated the fact that iron cannot become steel and scolded directly. "Li Logu, if you, the mother-in-law, are eaten by Sumyu, if you continue to be verbose, labor and management will kill you with one shot." Sumyu was eaten? Could it be that Su Shenxian fell into the water? Li Chunlei was stunned for a moment, then suddenly opened a gap in the cabin door and took a look. Su Shenxian was indeed gone. Li Chunlei's expression changed. This ship, he doesn't care about anyone on the board, but only Sumyu can't have anything happen to him. This is a living god. It's a major event that affects Li Chunlei's future fate. If Su Shenxian dies, how will Li Chunlei change his life in the future? The more Chunlei thought about it, the more he felt something was wrong. The next second, he kicked the captain next to him, who was pretending to be dead, and shouted, "Grandma, don't pretend to be dead. Where did you put the harpoon?" It's particularly scary when an honest man gets angry. The captain immediately stopped pretending, pointed tremblingly at a wooden box further inside and said, It's all there." When Li Chunlei heard this, he rushed over without saying a word, regardless of the shaking fishing boat. He opened the wooden box, picked up a few harpoons and ran outside. "Damn it, stop shouting, I'm here." The cabin door was violently opened with a bang. Li Chunlei stepped out. On the rocking fishing boat, he swayed left and right, very unsteady. However, he was holding many harpoons tightly in his arms. "Let go." He held his tanned old face high and his eyes firm. Then he ran desperately towards Hu Bei and the others. Everyone was stunned. Why did this guy suddenly change into a different person? Tomb Raider, Mary Shirley Young at the beginning. Author, October is fierce and cute. Chapter 74. Under the dim yellow water of the Yellow River. Sumu held his breath and swam in the water, with waves of bubbles floating behind him. Thanks to his ancestral dragon bloodline, Sumu has a strong physique, so there is no obstacle at all underwater, and he can hold his breath for a long time. If it were evaluated outside, it would definitely exceed the world record. Sumu used his night eyes to scan everything underwater, and soon discovered the big guy hiding on the other side of the fishing boat. Iron-headed Dragon King. That guy's body was covered in scales, his eyes were cyan, and the lines inside were very complex, and he looked like he had an evil spirit. This fish also has sharp teeth that even glow with light, making it look menacing in the water. As a monster as big as a truck, Sumu looked very small in front of it. However, Sumu was not afraid at all. Looking at the behemoth in front of him, a smile appeared on his lips. The iron-headed Dragon King also discovered Sumu. Look at this tiny human being in front of you. There was a hint of contempt in his blue eyes as big as a water tank. Such a big iron-headed Dragon King had already gained some sanity. In its understanding, humans have always been its snack. Even in the past, sacrifices were sent along the Yellow River to honor it. At the thought of being able to taste the deliciousness of human flesh again, the iron-headed Dragon King couldn't wait to rush towards Sumu in an aggressive manner. Under the water, the iron-headed Dragon King swung his huge fish tail, cut through the water waves with his sharp fins, and rushed towards Sumu. The bloody mouth has already been opened, and it is aimed at Sumu. However, when it was only a few meters away from Sumu, it suddenly found that it could not move. Almost at the same moment, an invisible majesty emanated from the human being in front of him. It was a pressure derived from blood, which made the iron-headed Dragon King's soul begin to tremble. It was as if the guy in front of me was not a human being, but a super terrifying ancient beast. That's right, this is Sumu's ancestral dragon power at work. The ancestral dragon is one of the three major races in the prehistoric times, and it can be called a divine beast among divine beasts. Although the majesty of the tattoo on Sumu's back is not as majestic as the real ancestral dragon, it is enough to intimidate this little iron-headed Dragon King. Sure enough, the effect did not disappoint Sumu. Sumu felt happy and came to the side of the iron-headed Dragon King leisurely. He opened his right hand, and an invisible light-containing sword was already in his hand, pointed at the iron-headed Dragon King in front of him. Under normal conditions, there is no way to drop attribute light groups, only in combat. Although the iron-headed Dragon King cannot move at this time, the unilateral crushing damage can also be counted as a battle, thereby obtaining the attribute light group. Seeing the fear in the giant blue eyes of the iron-headed Dragon King in front of him, Sumu suddenly felt that this feeling seemed more wonderful. The corners of his mouth were slightly raised, and his smile was bright, as if he was staring at a prey waiting to be slaughtered. Chi! Sumu pierced the iron-headed Dragon King's skin with a sword, and a shimmering attribute light group also fell. Ding! I found that the iron-headed Dragon King dropped attribute light groups. Since the host is underwater, the automatic pickup function has been turned on? Ding! Congratulations to the host, you have obtained the iron-headed Dragon King's defense attribute add 20. 2 consecutive system prompts sounded in Sumu's mind. Sumu felt happy. Sure enough, this is possible. Without hesitation, he aimed his sword at the iron-headed Dragon King in front of him again. Chi! Ding! Congratulations to the host, you have obtained the underwater breathing ability attribute of the head Dragon King add 1, 10/100. The attribute of underwater breathing ability? Sumu's eyes lit up. Just now, he was worried that he didn't have enough oxygen and should he come out of the water to take a breath midway. Now, with underwater breathing, it doesn't have to be so troublesome. However, Sumu also noticed the words 10/100. Obviously, you need to accumulate the attribute value to 100 to obtain this ability. Without hesitation, Sumu continued to attack. Chi! Ding! Congratulations to the host, you have obtained the Iron-Headed Dragon King's defense attribute add 20. Chi. Ding. Congratulations to the host, you have obtained the Iron-Headed Dragon King's strength attribute add 10. Chi. Ding. Congratulations to the host, you have obtained the Iron-Headed Dragon King's underwater breathing ability attribute add 1. Sumu thrust out his sword one after another. Each sword penetrated deeply into the body of the Iron-Headed Dragon King. The Iron-Headed Dragon King, who had lived for countless years, had already raised his fish scales to be strong and hard enough. But in front of the unparalleled sharp Han lightsaber and Sumu's huge power, he was no different from paper. The Iron-Headed Dragon King could not move at all. It was like a puppet on strings, at the mercy of Sumu. The Iron-Headed Dragon King now looked at Sumu with his original contempt. What replaced it was deep fear. The human being in front of me doesn't look like a human being at all. He is simply a devil. Whether it's the terrifying power that immobilizes it, the strange weapon that can pierce its proud fish scales, or the surprisingly large strength. These are not things it can mess with. Now it just hopes it will end soon. Ding. Congratulations to the host, you have obtained the Iron-Headed Dragon King's underwater breathing skill attribute add 1, 100/100. Ding. Congratulations on the host's underwater breathing ability attribute value reaching full value. Can it be integrated and upgraded into a skill? Upgrade, Sumu ordered in his mind without hesitation. Ding. Integrating underwater breathing ability, congratulations to the host for gaining the ability to breathe underwater. Phew, after so many pokes, I finally succeeded. The next second, Sumu clearly felt that some changes had taken place in his lungs and in the muscles of his neck. Sumu tentatively exhaled the breath he was holding in his mouth, and then inhaled sharply. To his surprise, he didn't feel any discomfort. The water seemed to enter his modified lungs, filtering out the moisture and leaving behind air. Sumu opened his mouth again and spat out, and what came out was some water and waste gas. During the whole process, the water did not choke him. So this is the ability to breathe underwater? This is so abnormal. Sumu was shocked. If this is the case, even if he goes to rob some tombs in the sea, he won't need any tools. Thinking of this, Sumu suddenly felt happy. He glanced at the system interface. Host, Sumu. Power, 180 normal age is 10. Speed, 130 normal age is 10. Defense, 1400/200 currently in iron body state. Bloodline, Zalong turn on? Bloodline accessory skill, Sumeru space, a super large storage space exclusive to the host. Underwater breathing ability, no need for oxygen underwater, just breathe at will. This time he not only gained the ability to breathe underwater, but his defense attribute also reached 1,400 points. As long as he gets another 600 points, he can evolve from the original iron body to a copper body, taking his defense to a higher level. It's so rewarding. Sumu was overjoyed, raised his head, and once again stared at the Iron-Headed Dragon King in front of him. At this time, the Iron-Headed Dragon King can no longer provide him with attribute light groups, that is to say. Brother, you are very good, but I have finished using you, goodbye. Sumu once again raised the light sword in his hand. But this time, he aimed at the eyes of the Iron-Headed Dragon King. Everything in the world has flaws. The Iron-Headed Dragon King has a huge body, and its scales are as hard as iron. Before Sumu stabbed countless swords, but the wounds were only to the flesh and shed some blood. No life was harmed. And the eyes of the Iron-Headed Dragon King are where its life gate is. Therefore, just one blow can be fatal. Chi. With the last sword, Sumu stabbed decisively and quickly, giving the Iron-Headed Dragon King a good blow. After all, although this guy has eaten countless people, he has also made contributions to Sumu. Bright red blood continued to flow from the wound. In a short while, the river was dyed red, and it was eye-catching. At this time, on the boat on the river, Hubei and Fatty Wang had just received the harpoon handed over by Li Chunlei at the risk of death, and were preparing to go down to rescue Su Mu. But when I saw this river of blood, I immediately felt a thump in my heart and turned pale. No, no way, underscore. Tomb Raider, Mary Shirley Young at the beginning. Author, October is fierce and cute. Chapter 75. This is a very scary thing. Hubei looked at it dumbfounded and said, "Is it possible?" Fatty Wang rubbed his eyes, with a look of disbelief on his face, and shouted, "Impossible, impossible, how could my brother with such a strong ability die?" And Li Chunlei also squatted on the ground, looking very scared. Helpless. Everyone was furious, especially Shirley Yang, who had always been calm, unable to calm down at this time. She held the harpoon in her hand, her eyes filled with tears, and her nose turned slightly red. She immediately flipped one leg onto the side of the boat and prepared to jump off to avenge Su Mu. However, at this moment, a huge thing gradually floated on the river. This is the body of the iron-headed Dragon King, and blood is still flowing on it. Everyone was stunned for a while, some couldn't believe their eyes, and subconsciously rubbed them several times. They looked at Su Mu riding on this iron-headed Dragon King in shock, and their hearts were inexplicably shocked. "No, brother Su, when did you kill this monster? You can kill this monster underwater, you are the real monster. Depend on. It almost makes me cry. You kid, you have to repay me well. Immortal, immortal, I knew you were an immortal, great, haha, I can finally see the power of the gods. Husband, come up here, let me see you." Some of the people were sighing, some were surprised, some were regretful, and some were distressed. It turned out that it was not Su Mu who was killed, but Su Mu who killed the iron-headed Dragon King in an unnatural way, which was enough to shock everyone. The boatman was even more shocked. Someone shouted loudly from behind, "The immortal descends to earth. It's an immortal descending to earth." Li Chunlei flopped and knelt on the boat, then cried and shouted, "God, I knew you wouldn't die. Come up quickly and I will serve you." Both of them were kneeling on the ground, looking very respectful. It was also very funny. Su Mu smiled lightly, stepped on the iron-headed Dragon King, and then stepped hard and flew to the ship. Such a posture, flexible and elegant, feeling like a master from outside the world. This scene shocked everyone, and they thought that Su Mu was using some magic or light skills. In fact, Su Mu just stepped on the iron-headed Dragon King hard, and relying on this reaction force, just jumped on the ship. Pretty. Everyone was shocked, thinking that this was one of Su Mu's abilities. After Su Mu came up, the sky suddenly became clear. Especially the cloudless sky dissipated immediately, and a dazzling sun came out from behind the dark clouds, shining in all directions. Everyone suddenly felt a kind of light and warmth. The water soon calmed down and became very strange. All these changes made everyone, especially the boatman and Li Chunlei, think that this was a miracle, and they kowtowed several times on the ground. "Thank you, thank the gods, if it weren't for us, my son and I would have died in this river. His son is also in the cabin, but he has been hiding under the table." No one except Su Mu noticed it. Generally, when children are in danger and want to avoid it, they will stay under the table and don't want to be discovered. Su Mu waved his hand, said, "How is your son?" "Nothing is wrong." The boatman nodded, his eyes widened and excited, "But it's okay, it's okay. Thank you so much. I don't want your too big unity this time. If it weren't for you, I would have nothing. Go take care of your child quickly," Su Mu said. Thank you too, bosses." The boatman then hurriedly walked towards the cabin. Ding Sishan walked out of the cabin and stared at Su Mu non-stop, her eyes full of shock and admiration. In fact, the look was like looking at an idol. As soon as Hubie looked at the iron-headed Dragon King floating on the water in the distance, he was surprised. I said, "Brother Su, you've even defeated such a big guy, what else can't you do?" Sumu smiled slightly and said, "It's just a little effort, don't care so much." "Brother Su, are you kidding me?" Fatty Wang stared at the huge iron-headed Dragon King and said, "That's it, just a little effort. Okay, don't worry about the details." Sumu waved his hand slightly and said, "How much can this fish be sold for?" After a while, Fatty Wang's true nature was exposed again. He couldn't help but look at the iron-headed Dragon King and said, "This can be considered endangered after all. It's rare." Everyone couldn't help laughing. Sumu patted Fatty Wang on the shoulder and said with a smile, "You can't eat this fish. Generally, you can't eat the fish that has become a spirit, so as not to deal with anything." This iron-headed Dragon King was sane before. If he really ate it, his soul wouldn't be able to keep up with the fat man. "Ah, is it true?" When Fatty Wang heard this, he immediately gave up the idea. Special grandmas. I've seen books talking about eating some 1,000-year-old ginseng, 10,000-year-old Polygonum multiflorum, etc. It's all fucking nonsense. Shirley Yang finally breathed a sigh of relief after checking Sumu and found that there were no injuries, and said, "Why did I encounter this unlucky thing before I even arrived in Gulan County? It almost scared me to death." Fatty Wang glared at Li Chunlei, who was silent, and said, "It's just because of your old embroidered shoes that caused the trouble. We don't want any more shoes. Pay back the money." Li Chunlei immediately held his backpack in his arms, and then said very excitedly, This is money, no one wants to take it." Sumu was about to speak to ask them to calm down, when Shirley Yang pulled him quietly, her voice as soft as a mosquito. "Explain. Did you intentionally go into the water alone just now?" Shirley Yang was a little annoyed, staring at Sumu, her cheeks bulging. It turned out that Shirley Yang had already seen some clues when she was in the cabin. Later, when she thought about the details carefully, she immediately figured it out. This unreliable husband definitely went into the water on purpose. Because so many people went into the water without being in danger, Sumu, who was more powerful, fell into the water. What does this mean? It means that Sumu did it on purpose. Shirley Yang, thinking that he was still very sad for this liar, he was very angry. The corner of Sumu's mouth twitched, slightly embarrassed. While comforting him, he sighed in his heart, although it is a good thing that his woman is so smart and considerate. Sometimes you are too smart and can guess everything so clearly that it is quite troublesome to comfort you afterwards. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Tomb Raider, marry Shirley Young at the beginning. Author, October is fierce and cute. Chapter 76. Just like that, the group of people arrived at the dock. After landing on the shore, a group of people were a little tired and stumbled. "We are stepping on the Yellow River now. We are in Gulan County ahead. I will take you to the guest house quickly and take a hot bath. Don't dare to get sick," Li Chunlei said as he walked. Especially Sumu, who stayed in the river for such a long time, if something happened, he couldn't bear the consequences. A group of people were walking on a small road, not far away. With the meager light, that was Gulan County. Soon they came to a guest house. "This is the best guest house in our Gulan County. When you live here, you can find everything to eat and drink, which is convenient." Everyone opened several rooms. Ding Sishan originally had a single room, but Ding Sishan was a little scared because of what happened during the day. In desperation, Shirley Yang and Ding Sishan lived in the same room. Who was left soon? Fatty Wang and Sumu squeezed together. There was no separate bathroom in the guest house, so Sumu and the others had to go down and take a shower. Fatty Wang muttered, it's unlucky, it's called going out. Unfortunately, we quickly took a hot bath and transferred. When he reached the first floor, Sumu noticed that Li Chunlei was still in the corner, obviously waiting for him. He winked at Li Chunlei, who nodded respectfully and bowed before leaving. Sumu believed that Li Chunlei now would not dare to go against what he had confessed before. After everyone washed up briefly, they gathered in the lobby of the guest house. Hubei and Fatty were all dressed casually. Wearing a large white vest and blue slippers, the fat man even hung a towel to wipe his sweat. Everyone was drinking tea and eating melon seeds. When the fat man had nothing to do, he was bragging to the female comrades in the hostel about all the awesome experiences they had had on the Yellow River. The female comrades were stunned for a moment. But at this time, a candle illuminates a tortoise's divination, and it doesn't feel good at all. Chen Tuan is reincarnated, and King Wen is reborn. A mellow, hoarse, old voice came from the side. Everyone heard the voice and went away, only to see two people walking towards them. There was an old man, wearing a pair of dual blind glasses and a goatee. He was holding a thread-bound old book in one hand, holding a bamboo stick in the other hand. Next to him stood a man dressed as a farmer, slovenly, about 50 or 60 years old. Blind Chen. Sumu suddenly raised his eyebrows. Sure enough, this blind Chen still looked like who in the original novel. Bae and others took a look. This guy has been doing nothing since he became blind in the tomb of King Xian. He relies on his knowledge to make a living by measuring words. Usually he can fool some superstitious surnames, but in who it was still close in front of Bae and others. Sumu was not in a hurry to tell Lao Hu and others about the blind man, but took Shirley Yang's little hand and sat down, waiting to watch the show. With Fatty's character, blind Chen came to fool him, there was no way he could ask for it. Sure enough, the fat man stood up directly, approached the blind man, and said angrily. I said, old man, what do you mean by these 4 rounds? Blind Chen frowned and said with a hum, I can't bear to see you die here, so I'll tell you clearly. With that said, blind Chen walked forward. Everyone covered their noses, mainly because the smell of blind Chen was really too strong. Although I am blind, I understand the laws of heaven. This is going to be a disaster for you guys. Blind Chen continued. Everyone had just escaped from death on the Yellow River. As the saying goes, if you survive a catastrophe, you will be lucky. How could they hear that they were in disaster? Fatty Wang frowned and said, what are you doing? What do you mean? Chen Yulu said mysteriously, guys, the things in this soil are certainly good, but they need to be handled with caution. Those who have passed away hope to reach bliss as soon as possible, and no one wants to be disturbed by outsiders while they are sleeping. You all have yin qi in your body, but the yin qi carried by 2 of you is so heavy that I am afraid that a disaster is imminent. Blind Chen was talking nonsense, which really frightened Fatty Wang, and he was a little stunned and said. Tell me, which 2? At this time, Blind Chen stopped talking. Hubei frowned and asked, old man, what do you call me? Blind Chen raised his head and said, oh, I'm blind, just call me Blind Chen. Fatty Wang looked at him like this, and it was clear that he was trying to trick someone, so he started to attack him directly and said. I said, when we swept away all the monsters, why didn't we arrest you? Just tell me why we were in disaster. If you can't tell me 1, 2, 3, I will smash it for you. Blind Chen smiled and said, you are a sharp-tongued young man with no moral integrity. You have no wisdom at all. It's not worth my waste of time talking to you. But, this one. Blind Chen looked in Sumu's direction and said, I would like to talk about it. Fatty Wang stared straight-eyed and said to Hubei, what do you mean? Does this old man look down on me? Who? BA smiled and said they are too lazy to pick up the trouble with you. If you come up, you will smash their stalls. Suddenly a hand stretched out and said, "Come on, little brother, let me feel your bones." Sumyu was shocked for a moment. He didn't want to have his bones touched by blind man Chen. You must know that this guy never washes his hands when he goes to the toilet. It can be seen from the smell on his body. He was about to grab blind man Chen's hand. Sumyu immediately pulled Hu Ba over and blocked him in front of him. Anyway, Hu Ba was bound to suffer this disaster in his life. "Hey, brother Su, what are you doing?" Before Hu Ba could react, he was held in the face by that blind man Chen. "Don't move, let me touch it." "What are you touching?" Hu Ba struggled. "Of course it's bone touching." Blind Chen didn't say anything, and touched Hu Bai's face and head. A faint smell of corpse lingered on the tip of his nose. Hu Bai felt bad all over, and he looked at Su with resentment. He glanced with admiration, then turned back to Blind Chen and said, "I said, uncle, let's forget it or not, don't touch it." Hu Ba said tactfully, "This smell is really unbearable." Chen Yulu turned a deaf ear and said the hexagram skills have been passed down from generation to generation. By touching the bones and observing the words, one can know the high and low without using words. What can you find by touching the bones? Hu Ba glared and said, "Let me advise you, superstitious ideas must eventually be abandoned, and the glory of the party shines upon me, you know." Suddenly, Blind Chen looked solemn and started to wonder. Weird, weird. Hu Ba was stunned for a moment, thinking. Could it be that this old man really has some skills? As a result, the blind man's next words almost made him angry to death, _ Tomb Raider, Mary Shirley Young at the beginning. Author, October is fierce and cute. Chapter 77. Blind Chen suddenly looked solemn as he touched it, and started to wonder. Weird, weird, why does this person look so similar to me when I was young? Everyone burst into laughter. Sumyu also heard the sentence in the original work and couldn't help but laugh. Hu Bai's face turned green. "No, what do you mean? This is taking possession of me in a different way. It's cheap." Blind Chen shook his head and said, "No, no, no, I'm trying to flatter you." Seeing that Lao Hu was stunned by blind man Chen, Sumyu stood up and planned to treat him with his own medicine. "Old man, how about, shall I give you a fortune?" Blind Chen was stunned for a moment, the grooves on his face squeezed together, and he smiled slightly. "Okay, I'd like to see what you can figure out." Sumyu stared at Blind Chen and did not touch the bones like him. Mainly because Blind Chen was too dirty. The hair on his head looked like it had been squeezed with oil. Came out. And he didn't want to touch his face, mainly because he didn't know how long it had been since Blind Chen washed his face. Blind Chen didn't wait for a long time, so he asked in confusion, "You touch me, Su?" Mu frowned slightly and said, "Forget it, I can just use my eyes to see." Blind Chen laughed contemptuously and said, "Forget it, you better stop messing with me here. I won't believe you." As a result, Sumyu's next words made Blind Chen change his expression. "Your birth name is Chen Yulu, and you are the leader of Xiling, right?" Blind Chen was suddenly shocked. He didn't expect that Sumyu could actually guess his identity. Could it be, is this really calculated? Chen Yulu, hey. The expression on Blind Chen's face was extremely wonderful. He was shocked for a while, helpless for a while, and sad for a while. Fatty Wang and others were a little confused when they saw the old man's reaction. Co-author, Sumyu really guessed it right. No need to touch bones or tell fortunes, you can tell a person's identity with just a simple look. Do you want to be so awesome? Damn it, brother Su, it's not an exaggeration to say you are God Su. Blind Chen sighed with emotion for a while, and then looked at the man dressed as an old farmer who had been watching the silent man beside him. "Professor Sun, tell me, did you tell them? Otherwise, this kid is too outrageous." The old farmer next to him smiled helplessly. "I didn't even say anything, this guy is really capable." Everyone was shocked. "Professor Sun." Then they took a serious look at the inconspicuous person dressed as a farmer next to him. He looked ordinary and a lot older, and his face was also unique to farmers here. Dark and red face. "Is that it? Professor Sun?" While everyone was shocked, Sumu thought of more. He knew the other identity of Professor Sun, Feng Shui. This is the successor of Guanshan Taibao. He has never found any talent in his life, and always wants to do amazing things in the archaeological world. Finding the Dixian tomb will definitely make him proud. The Dixian tomb is a good thing. It contains all the treasures of Guanshan Taibao and all the rare treasures in the world. Even Sumu longed for such a place. At this time, Hu Bie and the others gradually came to their senses. They had heard Professor Chen mention this Professor Sun before. He was particularly knowledgeable about various ancient characters and had seen them before. The cursed eye pattern on everyone's back. When he thought of this, Hu Bei couldn't help it. He directly showed the pattern on his back and asked, "Professor Sun, have you seen this pattern?" However, Professor Sun didn't pay much attention to Hu Bei. Shirley Yang came over again and said very politely, "Professor Sun, hello, I heard that Professor Chen often mentioned you and said that you are a leading figure in the literary world." "Ah. That is." Fatty Wang said, "Look, Miss Yang and Professor Chen know each other. They are both acquaintances. Professor Sun, please tell us quickly." Professor Sun shook his head and said, "I don't believe it. This is going to be very difficult." Just when everyone didn't know what to do, Professor Sun turned to look at Sumu and said, "I do know him. Professor Chen has always praised Sumu in front of me before." Everyone's eyes lit up, and they did not expect such a thing. It seems that Professor Chen has a very deep understanding of Sumu. Shirley Yang did not miss this good opportunity and asked quickly, "Then do you know what we are doing? Is this the pattern on your back? In fact, the red spots on your body are a virus." Professor Sun nodded. He looked at Shirley Yang and said, "A long time ago, near the Zagrama mountains in the drizzle, there lived a tribe called Zagrama. Grama tribe. They migrated from the distant European continent and lived in peace with the world. They knew that people discovered a bottomless ghost cave in a valley. The prophet of the tribe led the tribe to try to pry into the secrets deep in the ghost cave. But I didn't expect that it would lead to a terrible curse. A kind of eyeball-shaped red patch would appear on those people's bodies, which could not be removed for life. People with such red spots would not live to be 50 years old. Although they would not die immediately, they would die soon. Before death, their blood will gradually turn yellow. Breathing became increasingly difficult and tortured. The prophet learned from divination that there is a divine bead with the same red spot pattern in the Central Plains world. Only by finding this bead can the curse be broken. So the Zagrama people began to migrate inland and were gradually assimilated by the Han civilization. The most popular, the Zagrama people, finally established that this kind of bead was the Muchan bead in the legend of the Central Plains. So the Zagrama people became the search process that lasted for thousands of years began. When Fatty Wang heard Muchan bead, he asked, "Where is Muchan bead now?" Professor Sun said, "After various clues, we found out that the Muchan bead was buried in the ancient tomb. The first person to know about the Muchan bead was King Wen of Zhou. He once recorded its whereabouts on a tortoise shell. This tortoise shell, which later generations called the Dragon Bone Book, was nowhere to be found." Shirley Yang also understood that if she wants to lift the curse, she can only find the other half of the Dragon Bone Book. Only in this way can she find the Muchan bead. Sumu really wanted to tell them. There is no use in finding the dragon bone book. The muchen bead is just for the sacrifice. The king's tomb, but it's hard to explain once he opens his mouth. Moreover, I originally thought about tricking Ma Dada and them together with Li Chunlei. But now it seems that I'd better search for the dragon bone book with everyone first. As for Ma Dada, let's wait. Let's talk about it when we come back, _ Tomb Raider, Mary Shirley Young at the beginning. Author, October is fierce and cute. Chapter 78. Early the next morning, everyone started heading to the Fishbone Temple. Not long after walking, I found a house. It was a cave dwelling dug into a mound of earth as if it had been struck directly by a knife. It can also provide shelter from wind and rain. It is a house exclusive to the people here. Sumu stared at a house in the wilderness, thinking that this must be the house of the old man who used Western Joe slates to line the latrine. After walking all morning, everyone's walking pace gradually slowed down. Now that they saw someone, they naturally went into rest. The uncle was very kind and received these people. Halfway through the meal, Ding Sishan suddenly asked Hu Ba a question about Feng Shui. "Brother Hu, I have something to ask you. Do you think the emperors of the past dynasties, from Qin Shi Huang to Pui, these hundreds of emperors, have always talked about dragon veins in Feng Shui? With so many emperors, are these Feng Shui levels enough to bury them?" Fatty Wang interjected and said with a smile, "I guess one piece of this is enough for a battalion." Hu Bei explained there are many dragon veins, but there is only one explanation. From the perspective of Feng Shui, the two most important points of this dragon vein are shape and momentum. Shape refers to the terrain and mountain shape where the tomb is located, potential refers to the state presented by the terrain and mountain shape. There is a saying in the dragon seeking technique, the dragon in the great way has its own truth. The dragon body appears erratically. The dragon gives birth to 9 sons, all of whom are different. Their temperaments, talents, and appearances are also different. This is especially true for dragon veins, so it is said that they are different from each other. The 9 sons of the dragon are much more complicated. Then it is reasonable to say so, Ding Sishan responded. Fatty Wang waved his hands and said, "I don't understand this shape and momentum, but I know that throughout the ages, there have been short-lived dynasties and emperors who died violently. When I talk about this dragon vein, I'm skeptical." Hu Bei continued to explain, "The form of dragon veins makes sense from the perspective of nature, but it is not applicable in society. This historical torrent cannot be caused by Feng Shui decide. Simply speaking, earthquakes, floods, and river diversions may overturn the previous situation and trends, and the original pattern. It was originally a land of auspiciousness, but it is possible that due to an earthquake, the odd appointment turned into a vicious appointment, which is beyond human control. Therefore, it is feudal superstition to build a tomb according to the ancient method of choosing auspicious points. However, if you use the theory of shape and potential in Feng Shui to deduce and calculate, and divide the money to fix the points, that is a scientific method." Su Mu smiled and said, "It's a scientific method, right? Then if I make a prediction, do you think it's scientific?" Hu Bei also became interested and said, "Brother Su, why don't you throw in a hexagram?" Su Mu didn't hesitate. He took out a few coins and threw them directly on the table. Bang bang bang, the coin returns to its place, with 2 characters for 2 flowers and 2 characters, in different directions. The filth can be seen clearly, and the tomb can be seen in the temple. The fat man leaned over and asked, "What does this mean?" Su Mu smiled slightly, with a very mysterious look, and said nothing. Hu Bei smiled and explained, "The filth is the toilet pit, and it is bright and dark." "It may be." Fatty Wang suddenly realized. "Oh, doesn't that mean there is light in the pit?" Everyone couldn't stop laughing. Ding Sishan covered her stomach and explained, "There are artifacts or tombs in the pit." "Ah! Is there a hidden weapon in the pit?" Fatty wouldn't believe it if someone else calculated it, but if Sumu calculated it, that would be different. Maybe there really is. When Fatty Wang thought about it, his eyes suddenly lit up, and he suddenly holding his stomach. No, I ate too much and I have to go to the toilet quickly. As a result, after he got to the toilet, he actually found a stone slab in the hut in the backyard. It looked very primitive. It looked like a good thing. He hurriedly shouted to the people in front, "Hey, everyone, come here quickly. Show you something new." Who? BA was stunned for a moment, and replied angrily, "It's so thin, how come it's still fresh?" This sentence immediately made everyone lose the intention to continue eating. So they quickly put down the things in their hands and came to Fatty Wang's side. "Yo, there really is something, you are good." "Who?" BA said to Fatty Wang in slight shock. The fat man chuckled, "Isn't it our God Su who predicts the fortune accurately? This thing should be from the early Western Zhou dynasty," Shirley Yang said. Everyone covered their noses and knelt down to look at the stone slab. "It's a pity that the words are all smoothed out," Sumu sighed with emotion. "In other words, are there tombs from the Western Zhou dynasty around here?" Fatty Wang said. "Hubei," I said with emotion, "I found that you are very talented in this area." At this time, the old man, the head of the household, was startled when he saw a group of people surrounding the hut. "Hey, that's a hut, not a place to eat." Everyone smiled and left without touching this stepping stone. After all, if the words are smoothed, they are not worth much. They gathered around the table and continued to eat. Shirley Yang asked, "Uncle, what are you doing? Where did that stepping stone come from?" "I had it when I was a kid." The old man said very calmly, "When I was a child, there was a professor in Kyoto who said that the slate is a good thing, but it is good, but it cannot be used as food, so I use it to pad the latrine." The old man was weaving a bamboo basket and asked, "Where are you going?" "We are going to the Southwest Ferry." "Hubei," I said. He had already calculated before. Going to the Fishbone Temple is in the same direction as the ferry. The old man kindly reminded, "Then you have to be careful, don't fall into the maze." "A maze?" Fatty Wang asked. "What kind of maze?" The old man explained, "The area in front of the Fishbone Temple looks like ordinary land on the surface, but if you are not careful, you will fall into the earth shell. As long as you fall, you will never get out. We the locals call that area the Longling Mysterious Cave." He shook his head and said helplessly, "That place is very evil. You can see ghosts hitting the walls in broad daylight. There are still a lot of dirty things, and many people died in it. Last month, there was an exploration team that said they wanted to dig some ore. After they went in, they never came out, not a single one came out." Everyone was thoughtful for a while. At this moment, Fatty Wang suddenly remembered Sumu's last hexagram. "Hey, brother Su, what was behind the divination you set out to predict when you encountered a monster in the water?" As soon as these words came out, everyone looked at Sumu. After all, Sumu's previous words had come true, and the following words were no exception. Sumu glanced at him and said slowly, "See you in the temple." Tomb. Hubei thought for a while and said, "It should be related to the Fishbone Temple. Didn't I say it before? The Fishbone Temple may be on top of that big tomb." "That's right, this trip may also find the other half of the Dragon Bone book," Shirley Yang said. The more they talked, the more excited they became, and the more they thought about it, the more they couldn't wait to go there. Sumu was also full of expectations. "You must know that there is a huge black-faced man in the maze, and he doesn't know what will happen to him this time. What unexpected attributes does he bring?" Everyone was eager to find the tomb, so they didn't even bother to rest, so they set off towards the Fishbone Temple again. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Tomb Raider, Mary Shirley Young at the beginning. Author, October is fierce and cute. Chapter 79. After walking for several hours, everyone finally saw the legendary Fishbone Temple. The entrance of the Fishbone Temple is made of the big mouth of the iron-headed Dragon King, and there are many teeth there, which is very scary. As soon as Hubei looked at the Fishbone Temple in the distance, he laughed on the spot. If the Fishbone Temple is located in a Feng Shui treasure cave, I will burn my copy of 16-character Yin-Yang Feng Shui secret technique when I go back. Fat Wang gasped for breath. What's wrong, isn't this a Feng Shui treasure? Look at the wind, howling, look at the water, yes, there are quite a few rivers. Hubei waved his hand, shook his head and said that's another thing. Building a temple is for the benefit of one party, so the place where the temple is built must be a palace with upright stars and famous mountains. As the saying goes, there is something hidden in the valley. Pass through the heart and stand without entering the face. Apart from this Fishbone Temple, have you ever seen any temples in the valley? Even if it is a tutu temple, it does not need to be built in such a deep ravine. So, is this Fishbone Temple really a cover for those tomb robbers to hide their lies? Fatty Wang said. Sumu shook his head slightly and said, that's not the case, Lao Hu, look to a higher place. Hubei was stunned for a moment, but he still listened to Sumu's decision and climbed higher. There is a saying in the secret of looking for the dragon, there are hundreds of mountains and rivers, and there are countless dragon towers and palaces. Hubei sighed, mocking himself a little, and said it seems that I really made a mistake. Fatty Wang was a little confused after hearing this, and so were the others. What does this mean? Fat Wang asked. Hubei explained although the mountains around this temple are barren, unobstructed and unprotected, there are still clouds hidden on the top of the extremely high peaks, and there are deep and peaceful dwellings below. The person who built the temple is really an expert. Now it is absolutely certain that this Fishbone Temple is the entrance to the tomb. Shirley Yang and Ding Xishan were shocked after hearing this and said, then let's go quickly and see how to get in. Everyone then quickened their pace and walked towards the Fishbone Temple. However, they only heard two exclamations. It was Ding Xishan and Fatty Wang. Everyone looked around and saw that these two people had fallen into the soil. Inside the pit, only two half-parted arms and one head were left outside. Hubei's face turned pale, it's broken. This is what the uncle reminded us before. This is a shell of earth. They fell into it inside the hole. At this time, Ding Xishan and Fatty Wang were getting deeper and deeper. They were struggling and shouting for help. Hubei was extremely anxious. These two people were very much the object of his admiration. The other one was his good brother for more than 10 years. But now they both fell into the pit, and they were a little far away. How could he save him? Just when Hubei was in trouble, Sumu suddenly sounded. Hello. Lao Hu, what are you thinking about? Why don't you hurry up and get the fat man? I'm here with Si Tian. Hubei was stunned, and then he remembered that there were Sumu and Shirley Yang next to him. People are like this. Many times, when you are anxious, you become more confused. This thing is very powerful. Don't struggle. The more you move, the harder it will sink. Shirley Yang was on the side guiding Ding Xishan and Fatty Wang on the correct way to escape. Fatty Wang and Ding Xishan gradually calmed down, but they were still sinking, but at a much slower speed. After all, no matter how big-hearted they are, they still have some feelings in their hearts. Nervous, after all, this is a time of life and death. Lao Hu, Shirley, you go drag the fat man away. I will rescue Xiao Ding and quickly go to support you. Sumu commanded calmly. Shirley Yang and Hubei hurriedly ran towards Fatty Wang. Each of them held one of their arms to prevent him from falling. But the weight of Fatty was too heavy. The two men pulled so hard that the veins on their faces were exposed. They even dug their fingernails deeply into Fatty Wang's arms. Fatty Wang didn't react at all and could only remain in a stalemate. The fat man's feet were empty at this time, and he could only continue to look for various frictions, just like doing the splits. On the other side, Sumu had already arrived at Ding Sishan's position. "Sishan, don't be afraid, take a deep breath." He grabbed Ding Sishan's arms. Ding Sishan's figure is very slender, and the hole is not as thin as her waist, so it is easier for her to slip down than a fat man. But fortunately, Sumu has caught Ding Sishan then. Sumu suddenly lifted Ding Sishan up and lifted her directly into the air. Ding Sishan was frightened and hugged Sumu, burying her deeply in her chest. Sumu was almost choked by the magnificent scene in front of him. Okay, safe, Sumu comforted. At this time, Ding Sishan reacted, and then quickly let go of her hand and got away from Sumu's position. Fortunately, Sumu didn't think too much and hurried to help Fatty Wang. However, Ding Sishan was full of her face was flushed, as if she was about to bleed. She looked at Sumu's back, her heart pounding. Sumu didn't know Ding Sishan's reaction behind him. He had already arrived at Fatty Wang's side and immediately took over Shirley Yang's position. His power is very great. For the fat man, Sumu didn't show any pity to the fat man this time and directly dragged him out. Bang! Fatty Wang was lying on the ground, panting heavily, his eyes filled with fear of the rest of his life. If it hadn't been for Sumu and the others this time, Fatty Wang would have been doomed. "Brother Su, thank you. If it weren't for you, I would really have to explain it here." Sumu shook his head and said, "Don't worry, it's impossible to explain." He knew that in the original work, Fatty and the others just fell into a cave and struggled a lot. After knowing that this area was the maze that the old man mentioned, everyone became more and more careful. They were afraid that the thrilling things before would appear again. A scene. Finally, after more than half an hour, everyone arrived at the Fishbone Temple, Tomb Raider, Mary Shirley Young at the beginning. Author, October is fierce and cute. Chapter 80. Looking closely at the Fishbone Temple, it looks even more dilapidated and desolate. There is a statue of the Water Dragon King at the front of the Fishbone Temple, but it is covered with spider webs and covered with dust. The ground was also covered with dust, and everyone smelled a very unpleasant smell as soon as they entered. Sumu glanced around. There were a lot of fallen things on the wall, and there were also a lot of damage on it. This place must have withstood years of sandstorms and heavy rains, so it has corroded like this, Sumu said. There was a bad and gloomy feeling in the whole temple, which was a little scary. Fatty Wang and the others entered the temple and looked everywhere for the entrance to the robbery cave, but they couldn't find it. Now they were a little confused. Could it be? Brother Su made a mistake, the entrance is not here? Hubie thought for a while and said, is it around the statue? Just like many martial arts novels, you kowtow on the ground, and then a martial arts secret book appears. Fatty Wang immediately said. Old Hu, you are really a damn talent. That's right, that's it. You are definitely on top. After saying that, Fatty Wang went to search near the statue. Shirley Yang couldn't help but asked, why do you get martial arts secrets when you kowtow? Sumu knew that she didn't read novels very much, so he laughed and joked, maybe it's because martial arts secret books have many hidden properties, and only pious people can get them. Everyone was groping for the statue and chatting. Come on, Lao Hu, come over and help me. Fatty Wang called. Everyone looked at it. It seemed that Fatty Wang wanted to really go to war. Hubei also passed by, and then he and Fatty Wang moved the statue with all their strength. As a result, the weight of the statue was completely, it was beyond their imagination. Two people couldn't move these at all. Fatty Wang suddenly got a little angry. He took out his engineering shovel angrily and smashed it at the statue. Boom! Fat Wang smashed it down hard, only to find that it couldn't be smashed at all. It was solid inside. After smashing for a long time, he could only break out some soil debris on the edge. Sumyu knew that in the original work, this thief hole the entrance design is very stupid. It is an anti-routine design. It is not a straight up and down tunnel, but there is a side passage behind the base of the statue. Just push it. Seeing the two people tossing like this, Sumyu couldn't help but remind. Take a look to see if there is a secret tunnel behind the altar. It may be built on the side. It may not be the straight up and down tunnel as we imagined. As soon as Sumyu opened his mouth, everyone looked at him in unison. For such a long time, every one of Sumyu's guesses has been right, which is like a miracle. Maybe it will be right this time too? Ding. Sishin was closest to the statue. She walked a few steps and subconsciously looked back, frowned and said, "But the gap is so small, can we get in?" Sumyu smiled and said, "How about you try it first? After all, you are very thin." Ding Sishin's face turned slightly red. When she heard Sumyu complimenting her for her good figure, she immediately felt a little embarrassed. Without hesitation, she came closer again. She reached out and knocked on the back of the altar. Dong dong. Unexpectedly, with such a gentle knock, there was a hollow echo. Ding Sishin said in surprise, "There is a wooden board behind this, with a layer of mud on the outside and empty inside." Everyone was overjoyed when they heard this. It seems that the entrance to the robbery cave is here. Ding Sishin picked up the engineer shovel pang pong. The wooden board was smashed open, revealing a dark hole inside. "Brother Su, your calculation is so accurate." Ding Sishin looked at it with admiration on her face. Hubei gave a thumbs up. "Brother Su, your ability in fortune telling is simply unmatched." "You do not say." "With Brother Su's ability, why don't we just walk sideways inside the tomb?" Fatty Wong chuckled, picked up the wolf eye flashlight and took a look inside the burglar's cave. This thief's cave is really well proportioned, as if drawn with a compass, and the shovel marks on the cave wall are all next to each other. "How careful is this?" "Who?" Bei said seriously. "Of course, this is done by experts. It seems that what we met is an expert. So what are you waiting for? Let's go now," Fatty Wong urged. Sumyu couldn't help but smile and said, "Why are you in a hurry? You don't know anything if you go down. You're not looking for death. Forget it, you'd better wait and let my 2 spare rations go in first." Fatty Wong was almost confused. He slapped his head suddenly and said, "Well, yes, don't be anxious and let's get some air. Generally, ancient tombs are closed for a long time and the air does not circulate, so it is best not to go down immediately after opening the tomb." So everyone sat aside and waited for a while, then put 2 big white geese in and tried. See. Both guys were fine, and everyone started to officially go to the grave. Fatty Wong took the lead, but not long after climbing in, this guy suddenly started shouting, "Oh my God! Pull me back quickly, there's something inside. There is something. Is there something?" Everyone's expressions changed and they hurriedly pulled the fat man's legs back. Sumyu used too much force and actually pulled the fat man out like a carrot. The fat man became unsteady and rolled on the ground. After several laps, he was really embarrassed. And right on his body, there were several mouse-sized spiders being pulled at him. Hubei and Sumyu were closest to the fat man, and they quickly helped to kill these spiders. When the fat man saw such big spiders on the ground, his face changed. All green. What on earth is this? How could the spider be so big? Ding Sishin was also very scared and immediately hid far away. At this time, Shirley Yang suddenly remembered that she had seen such a spider in a geographical magazine before. "I remembered that I had seen it in a geographical magazine. It was called a black man-faced clam. It only eats fruit flies and should not attack humans." While he was talking, The 2 or 3 fist-sized spiders immediately rushed towards Shirley Yang. This posture was obviously not very friendly. Sumu had quick eyes and quick hands and immediately took Shirley Yang into his arms. Inside, and then turned 180 degrees on the spot, moving the body to a different position, allowing these spiders to fly away. "Don't buy these magazines anymore," Sumu said calmly. Shirley Yang was a little embarrassed. She had sworn before that these spiders were herbivores. As soon as she said that, these spiders pounced on her. This was a naked slap in the face. Fatty Wang also laughed. He joked, "It seems that RDR Yang's knowledge is sometimes inaccurate." "Shirley." Yang rolled her eyes unhappily and said, "That's much better than if you don't know the name of this spider." Hubei smiled and said, "I actually know the names of these spiders. When our troops were constructing in a Grand Canyon in the Kunlun Mountains, they dug out a spider nest deep in the canyon. No one has ever seen such a big spider. Fortunately, our troops were well trained and killed those few spiders with guns. However, when we were in the spider lair, we found the bodies of several victims. He was wrapped in spider silk like a mummy, and his body became like tree bark." "Bitter bark?" "Why?" Shirley Yang asked. "About sex." Hubei explained, "Because this kind of spider will release venom. In addition to paralyzing you, it will also produce a digestive juice. The spider will seal the person, then inject the digestive juice, and wait until it becomes water. When the spider is in the state, it will suck the nutrient solution. Do you understand?" Ding Sishan trembled when she heard it, and she felt very scared, and said tremblingly, "Then if we encounter those spiders again, there is no way we can get past them?" "Who?" Ba waved his hand carelessly and said, "This kind of thing is afraid of fire. Don't worry, it'll be fine. It's better to be careful. I think there must be a bigger one inside," Sumu reminded. "You know, this whole Longling is a nest of spiders, so it shouldn't be too scary. It's better to give them a warning in advance so that they can be prepared." Everyone nodded. "After all, be careful to sail the 10,000-year ship. Continue to go down to the tomb. This time Hubei will open the way." Hubei also kept an eye on it and put 2 big white geese in front to clear the way. After knocking off a few spiders on the fat man just now, these 2 white geese were not afraid at all. It was a joy to eat. Sure enough, in the next section of the robbery cave, everyone encountered several such spiders one after another. As soon as they appeared, they were pecked and eaten by 2 guys. In another spider after being eaten, Hubei couldn't help but show off. "How about it, brothers? Is this a good idea?" Everyone smiled, and they also cooperated with each other, but their words were a little perfunctory. "Brother who is awesome. Brother who is so awesome. Brother whose big white goose is really awesome." Hubei was fine if he didn't listen. But once he heard it, he immediately lost his temper. "I asked you guys, could you use some snacks? Anyway, As soon as Hubei was talking, he suddenly stopped, and then for some reason, he suddenly buried his head in the soil. "Drill down as hard as you can." Ding Sishan behind him was dumbfounded. "Brother who, we are just joking, don't worry about it, right?" But Hubei did not give any answer. Strangely, Sumu felt something was wrong at that time. There is probably something wrong with Hubei.